Joining us now, Scott Taylor. Currently, he's a House of Delegates member from Virginia Beach, but he is the new Republican nominee for the 2nd District for Congress. And that final election, he'll be facing off against his Democratic opponent in November, but Taylor, a big favorite to be elected to Congress in November, and he knocked off incumbent from the 4th District, Randy Forbes, 2 weeks ago. Giant killer. Scott, good to have you with us, man.
John, good morning. Good to be with you and your audience as always.
Well, Scott, as you know, I predicted your victory over Randy Forbes about 2 weeks out. We didn't think it would be that margin. We thought it would be 5 or 6. You beat him by 12. I want to tell my audience that the day before the election, I talked to Scott, asked him what he thought, and he said he was going to win by 12. But he said, don't tell anybody that because I don't want people to feel overconfident. And he won by 12. Also want to tell you that we did an exit poll that day at Bill DeSteff's recommended precinct. And at 1 o'clock, we had him up by 12, and he won by 12. So, you know, Scott, you look at those numbers. You beat Forbes by over 5,000 votes. I mean, and a very impressive victory 2 weeks ago. Scott, let me just ask you point blank. The Randy Forbes campaign spent, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of $1,000s of negative ads. In fact, one of the things that shocked us in the final week of the campaign, they launched a new negative ad that I thought was the worst and most dishonest they had done. You were able to overcome all that, win in what I'm going to tell you is a landslide. Is it the end of negative ads? Did they just backfire on Randy?
I don't think it's the end of negative ads. They can be effective depending on how they're obviously used, but I think that it did backfire on this particular race. You know, there's a revolutionary tone in America, whether you're on the left or the right. People are really sick of the elite, if you will, and you know, they want something different. They think that Washington's broken on both sides. They want a fresh start, and I think that's what our messaging was and who I am. And, you know, I'm very well known in Virginia Beach, and we knew that we had high positives in polling. And John, I mean, how do you feel when somebody starts talking bad about somebody that you like? It is going to backfire. So I just think that I think their campaign miscalculated on many levels, and that's why the result was that you saw was produced.
When you look at this thing, it was a disastrous campaign, as you say, on many levels. One thing they really misconstrued is the level of turnout in Virginia Beach. I mean, they spent a lot of time on the peninsula, and they did okay there, but I mean, it just was not enough to, I mean, like you said, 62% of the district is Virginia Beach. When you do all the numbers, 69% it ended up being on election day, which means you got a big turnout there, not a big turnout on the peninsula. You also carried the Eastern Shore handily. So there was really nowhere in this race for Forbes to go. So I think really what they miscalculated from the beginning was the fact that they could just have a couple of people decide they were going to change districts. You had basically had Scott Ridgell trying to pull puppet strings. He has no impact whatsoever. I thought on 2 weeks ago, Tuesday, he was one of the biggest losers in this whole thing. But look, you know, people just rejected the whole idea of somebody in Washington changing districts, running away from the district that they was in. I thought from the beginning, Randy Forbes, who was my congressman, Scott, I thought he had a better chance of winning the 4th district in November against Don McEachin than he had of winning the 2nd district against you. I think I would have been right.
I think you are. I think you would have been right. But the ironic thing is Don McEachin doesn't live in the 4th district. He doesn't even live there. So that's the ironic thing. And I think that Mr. Forbes has a machine in Chesapeake and even independent Chesapeakeans, however you say that. Folks from Chesapeake would probably not want to be represented by a liberal guy from Henrico who doesn't live in the district, even though they may not disagree with Randy, but then they do have his seniority. I thought that argument probably would have played better there. I would have been happy to serve and honored to serve with Randy in Congress. We would have sent people to Chesapeake to help him out. And, so I agree. I think it was a big miscalculation. And, like I said, I mean, I live here in Virginia Beach. I drink, I eat. People know me. I've been here for a long time. And I just think that was the advantage in our ground. We had a great team, and our ground game was really, really good. And we have a machine over here, if you will. So, but like I said, in general, I think that people are tired of Washington. They think it's broken. They think we need a fresh start. They think that people aren't listening to them on both sides, and they want something done up there and a little shake-up, and that's what they're getting.
We're excited to have you up there, Scott. I think you're going to make a big difference. I think you are going to shake things up. I can tell my audience that might not be familiar with Scott Taylor. He's not one to stand around. He's going to get things done. He's the author of a book also, which I've had a chance to read on the happenings in the world. And so you're going to get things done. And I tell you, one of the most annoying things about the campaign, I'll just say this on the air, I got more emails and more legislation from Randy Forbes in 75 days than I got since I've been on the air, starting in 2012. So it's just like all of a sudden there was like all this activity, and I'm in his district. I'm on all his email list, and 60 months went by. I didn't see anything. So I just thought the whole thing, we're at a time where people are just tired of this. They want change. And Scott, I think you're going to go up there and make a difference. I've got a question.
John,
here.
We're not entitled.
We're not entitled. That's it. We're not entitled. Nobody's entitled.
It's something that you sacrifice for sure. You definitely it's all encompassing the campaign. This you certainly sacrifice, but it's absolute honor. It's a huge responsibility. It's not something that I take lightly, as you said. I don't like to sit around. I like to work and get things done, and that's what I will apply to Washington as I have in Richmond.
All right, here's a question from Ben in Virginia Beach, one of your voters. He said, hey, ask Scott to I read his book. He says, ask Scott to reinforce the fact that help from Croatia and Italy was available to come to the aid of those in Benghazi, but that it was never ordered to move. You want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Look, there are teams that are out there that are on pagers and they're ready to go. And if something happens, like an embassy attack or something like that, they get the call. They have their war bags packed, and all they have to do is get back to base, grab their bags for that specific mission, jump on an airplane, and get in the sky and move towards the fight. And that's everything that's happened, all the reports, all the emails that you saw. What didn't happen were military assets weren't moved to the site to get into the fight. When every red-blooded American would have been chomping at the bit to get in the fight to help Americans at the fire. That did not happen, and that's a failure of leadership before, during, after of this administration, and certainly Hillary Clinton.
Why?
Why is that a failure of leadership? Because consulates, U.S. consulates, and embassies around the world are American sovereign soil. That is an act of war. That's attack on our soil. Basically our president of the country, the ambassador, was there and missing. You've got to move. You've got to send people into the fight to help Americans under fire. You would have had zero resistance from the military, but there was a 3-hour meeting where they were debating whether to send those teams in, whether they made them change clothes a couple times. They were worried about with the Libyan government, which basically was non-existent, was not there, didn't by law. They weren't protecting our assets because they had zero capability to do that. You've got to make the call to send them in. And quite frankly, the president and Panetta did do that. Where the disconnect was in that 3-hour meeting, and I believe Hillary Clinton as well.
All right, so it looks like Hillary Clinton has gotten past this because the Republican synopsis put out by Trey Gowdy's team released last week, not a lot of fanfare with it. The Democrats released an opposing one. It didn't even really dominate the news cycle. Now, what about these emails? Hillary Clinton met for 4 hours with the FBI. Do you see anything happening here, Scott, an indictment?
Here's what worries me, John, is the Justice Department. It should. I got to tell you, I just literally before I got on your show, WikiLeaks just released emails from her server, from her private server. They just released about 1,000-some emails that had to do with the Iraq War. One of the first ones I opened up, I'm looking at it, and remember, keep in mind that I've had a top secret clearance too in the SEAL teams, and I looked at it and I'm like, this information is absolutely classified information, and on her server. So anybody out there that's been in the military that's had a clearance understands that you'd be up on charges if what she did. What worries me is the Justice Department. I personally think that we need to change. I think, like we do it in Virginia where the Attorney General is elected, different, he's not appointed. It scares me that you have, the president appointing the Attorney General, the head top law enforcement officer in the country. Mm-hmm. And then political deals can be made to make him or her not be prosecuted, someone else. That's pretty damn scary. So, that's what worries me is the fact that she may not get prosecuted because of that, because of political reasons. But there's no doubt in my mind that she has broken the law. No doubt in my mind.
Scott, how did WikiLeaks get their hands on this information?
I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to really delve into it, and I'm not sure if they even said anyway. But they've just released them, and they're from her private server. So, again, there's no doubt in my mind that she has broken the law. Zero doubt. And what scares me is that, or what worries me is that she hasn't been put up on charges yet, and that it is political. That Bill Clinton meets with the top law enforcement officer in the country, supposedly just a chance encounter at a random airport, and her plane. I mean, that's crazy to me, and it goes to me. It cuts right through the confidence of the American people and the folks that are leading us, basically, that they play by a different set of laws than we do, and that's a scary thought. Like as I told you earlier, we have a revolutionary tone in the country right now. Thank God, and hopefully it stays at the ballot box.
Well, look, they said, Loretta Lynch said they talked about grandchildren and golf. Then we find out that Loretta Lynch has no children, so she has no grandchildren, and she doesn't play golf. So that must have been a one-way conversation, right?
I didn't even heard that, but like I said, I mean, it goes right. I'm sure it goes to my confidence that there is a fair process, and I'm sure it does with anyone else who's heard about their chance meeting or whatever, regardless of what their conversation was or wasn't. So, like I said, you have a revolutionary tone in the nation right now, and hopefully it stays at the ballot box. But things like these and how how information can travel so fast, and people that maybe have been in the dark in previous times before the technologies now are not. You can't get away with stuff like that anymore.
You just can't do it.
And I think that things are coming to a head.
Scott, are you going to be at the Republican National Convention in Cleveland?
I haven't decided yet, but I would like to be there.
I want you to go so you can come on the air with me there.
I'd like to do that. I'd love to do a little radio and Radio Row, if you will, starting with your show up there. And I'm going to see what I can do.
All right, see if you can get there. Final question, 2nd District. You're going to win easy. Can't take anything for granted, but you are. Can Trump carry the 2nd District?
I think that Trump is highly underestimated in the general, despite all these bogus polls and that are basically just fodder for the news. I think that he's highly underestimated in the general. I think he's going to do very well.
All right. We want you to come to Cleveland. We want you to come with me on Radio Row. I'll be there Monday to Friday. Got expanded hours. I'm in 6 to noon. You can come in for a couple of segments. We can comment on everything that's happening. We love to have you there, Scott.
Love to be there, John. Always a pleasure. Have a great day.
Congratulations on your big victory 2 weeks ago, slaying Goliath. Thank you. This is the John Fredericks Radio Network.